handed to them. They're taught from within the system. I came from without the system, so I've been studying it from the perimeter. That's part of why I'm uniquely prepared to help everybody in the world understand how to operate with this sovereignty tech, because I've been voluntarily unbanked for 30 years while amidst the banked population. Most of the undocumented, unbanked of the world are not surrounded by anybody with bank accounts. They're unbanked not by choice. They don't understand the banking system. They're too far removed from it. I'm on the perimeter, so I can see inside and outside the box like you, just because of being who I am. This background that started in the 90s. Medical malpractice lawsuit led to my getting bonds put into a trust with a banker who broke the trust indenture and was personally liable for giving 10 grand to my parents in interest that he wasn't supposed to. And by the time I was 18, I'd been betrayed by doctors, lawyers, bankers, and the government didn't protect me from any of them. So I read the tax code and became a war tax resistor when I realized everybody was voluntarily handing over their income every year without even reading the rules. They were just self-identifying as taxpayers. I'm like, oh, maybe I just don't call myself a taxpayer. I never filed. They've never bothered me in 30 years. I just don't title anything in my name. So that's where the legacy asset protection training came in. As a student of all these systems, the tax minimization, the privacy, estate planning all comes from legacy systems with they call them special purpose vehicles that are segregated and layered like Russian dolls, with an LLC to a corporation to a domestic trust to an international trust. And with these multiple vehicles, you can end up creating so much obscurity nobody can dig down deep. And by the time they get there, you see them coming and it's empty, it's gone, it's a ghost like a Tai Chi fighter. So that same behavior that the boomers have been doing with their trusts in LLCs and corporations, we can do by purposefully using our Bitcoin entities in the same way. So like I have a Wyoming LLC that has a TransferWise international bank account and a Swan Bitcoin account, and I don't have an photo ID, but I have a business credit card, debit card. I can accept euros, I can accept dollars, I have like access to all of that. I have Strike. But I don't KYC on Strike. I can receive on the Strike and send out a Strike in sats, but I don't interface with the dollar system, because that's when all of the tracking chip comes up. Because
on ramp and off ramp, yeah.
And when I described the challenge that we're facing with trying to get all of this to everybody in the no corners realm, is that they're dealing with both Stockholm syndrome and like they're slaves that don't even recognize that they're slaves, and a lot of them are comfortable house slaves that will fight for their slavery because of their comfort and their gilded cages. So, one of the concepts as Bitcoiners, I think we all need to understand. I've been dealing with this as a war tax resistor my entire life. Every time I tell people I have not filed taxes my entire life, family or anybody, they get pissed, they get jealous. They're like, oh, I'm not paying my fair share. And then I laugh when people are like, oh, Bitcoin taxes. I'm like, I didn't pay with dollars. You think I'm gonna pay with Bitcoin? It's like, no. They don't, it ends up coming down to, they can't imagine leaving the plantation. And anyone who has left the plantation becomes a threat to those on the plantation in the house with the whips, the guns, or the chains and shackles, all of them. It threatens their entire way of life, just existing. Like, and let alone coming and recruiting. So we need to be careful, because that's like, they're not gonna welcome it. Just because it upsets their entire way of life and their paradigm. It's uncomfortable to like realize everything we've believed all our lives is all built on lies and smoke and beers. No one wants to find out that
it's 10 times worse than you can ever imagine.
Yeah, the pulling back the curtain on the wizard is not like something people like to see. One of the other points I've made is like, how often do you like being woken up? Like, I don't like being woken up. I don't like my alarm clock. I want to smash my alarm clock a lot of times. Like, if somebody wakes me up, I'm not real happy about it. So like, waking people up to slumber with, for what I call like a monetary adolescence. That's one of the other concepts I'm trying to get everybody to understand is some of it. So, part of this system has been training us all to become cogs in the machine, good automatons that work for the corporations, not entrepreneurial, creative, problem-solving individuals. And the school systems are pumping out cogs in the machine, and we're having to deal with accumulation of this now, multi-generational dumbing down of critical thinking thought processes, creative. And this is part of the problem, is we have to come together like this in real world interaction like this. This is part of where my focus is on building communities in person, figuring out how to foster community, cultivate community, grow community. And part of what I want to share is
That's why we homeschool all our kids.
that's part of that's the future. That's part of what I'm actually realizing is I just had part of why I sometimes go and recruit with shitcoiners. Like I go to the altcoiners because a lot of them just have good intentions and they're being led down the wrong path, and their own greed is tempting them, and their wishful thinking is like idealistically letting them believe that this is a good idea to make money for nothing. Like I want some too. Like sure, the government and Federal Reserve make money for nothing. Well, it's my turn now. Why can't we do it? Like, so I went to a meetup hackathon last week. There was here in Austin right after the BitBlock Boom event, or actually right after the anyway, it was Capital Factory had it, and it was focused and sponsored on the children. That's why I was bringing up the fostering. So one of the ideas I got out of it is, what if we don't wait for non-governmental organizations and we create a Bitcoin youth investment fund, and we have a geyser account going to a Noster, Wyoming LLAO that's a limited autonomous organization that interfaces with the banking entities, and then we have like a bunch of well-known, trusted, wealthy Bitcoiners as the trustees for a Bitcoin trust for the kids. So you get like Greg Foss for the kids, and we like create an Ellen Bits wallet and a Noster account for all the foster kids. They don't have an ID, they don't have a bank account. We don't directly fund, and we sponsor puppies, we sponsor African kids that sponsor our own fucking kids that don't have parents at 12 to 15. Like there's tens of thousands of them. Why don't we just take responsibility and do it our own damn selves and like put up a Bitcoin trust fund for these kids? Right? It seems like it's possible. It's becoming possible. Like we have to interface with compliance, but the beauty of it is it makes it all auditable and trackable and traceable, and that's why we needed the public first. It's to interface with all the compliance, KYC, AML, regulatory risks. We have to be able to control all those risks, and that's where the trusts come in, and the LLCs and the segregated special purpose vehicles. So use the same tools of the people that wrote the rules for ourselves, just as they have been for themselves. They're not obligated to teach us that a trust only has to hand over the name and the identity and photo ID of the signatory, and they don't need to know the source of income or total assets or anything. Like maybe 15% ownership sometimes. Like anybody with less than 10% ownership does not need to be disclosed on the trust. You want to be a partnership, an LLC, an individual, they want everything. They want like pull your skirt down, like open like your wallets and tell them everything just to like open a damn account. Like, so they leave a loophole for themselves, because people with money know that if anyone knows what they have and where they have it, their entire family becomes at risk. Like they carry insurance for kidnapping because of it. It's, they guard their own privacy tooth and nail. That's why we need to learn to do it ourselves. And that's what all these tools help us with. Some of these are the questions that I've been asking myself, suggesting we all ask each other and consider answers to all these things. Some just suggest right now, so this one I kind of didn't go into too much as far as the details and suggestions. So this is actually really interesting. I found Ayn Rand back in one of her quotes. This is from one of the speeches in one of her characters written nearly 60 years ago. She was already discussing the value for value model. It is the most ethical means of balancing scales between humans. It's like, I recognize you give me value, I don't want to leave the scales unbalanced, I'm going to provide some compensation. And trade is, I find, fundamentally human. Like when I started going to rainbow gatherings 30 years ago, trader circles were all the happening, all the events. That's where everybody gathered was trader circle. It was like the social center. It's like the trading grounds. It's where to trade is like it's part of human nature. We're not going to stop. So this is some of what I found interesting. This was the legacy solution when it kind of did a little research on, but the financial literacy is what they suggest. And these are all good ideas. It's like try to start saving, like pay off your debt so you're not paying interest, have a cushion of 3 months emergency fund, put away 15%, like is high. Most people can't even put away 10. Like, save for your kids' college fund, pay off your home early, and build wealth and give all of that. Like the best way to do every single one of that is to stack sats. Like we couldn't do it with dollars because it was a melting ice cube. Like they're printing it up out of thin air. Like we're losing value no matter what I realized when I started trading with Bitcoin that I experienced, and I got a taste of when I was trading those commodities, was that as a builder, as a real trade skilled, on the ground plumber, electrician, carpenter, I could never, no matter how good I was, keep up with people making money off of money, because they could just, it's like trying to bicycle against a Corvette. Like they're just pulling away, and there's no way I was outclassed. I was never gonna, and the whole game was rigged against me. If accumulate any kind of wealth in the world, if I'm trading my time for money and my real skills, while other people were able to use their money to make money with leverage like they're doing. So I had to figure out another way to use my mind, and now I'm realizing that all of these skills I have, I can now archive and create this library of assets of written in audio and text form that I accumulate in this digital library and a noster and identity and reputation that can earn sats for decades to come. I have my own estate that's an intellectual archive of the work that I've done that I can share with everybody about how to build, how to do massage, how to do Tai Chi. One of the things for my Tai Chi teachers, for their legacy, my 67-year-old Tai Chi master doesn't really have a disciple to pass everything on to. He's been practicing nonstop for 45 years now, 50 years, since he was like 15. And when he dies, all that's gonna go with him. And art isn't going to lose all that momentum of this like multi-thousand-year tradition. And if we can archive it, and I can get sats to enough to pay for his time and video, and then archive it, then I can have a multi-stream payment go to his wife even after because he's like 20 years older than her. She's like 42, he's 67 or so. It's like, so whenever like he's gone, his estate can still be funding her life through the rest of her days. They don't have any children, all because we use Nostr and Bitcoin, and sats can be coming from the world because this man's a living library of valuable like knowledge. We all are. That's part of what this value for value model is so important, is to inspire you, every one of us, figure out what value can you provide to everybody next to you. That's one of the things I'm trying to foster at these gatherings, is like flow of money and goods and services and ideas. Like figure out what can you do to bring value to everybody here, and then have a lightning address name tag so everybody can send you some zaps. Like in every event, we should normalize everybody having like their lightning address, having QR codes, and like bringing stuff to sell, goods, food, services. Like we should be having a little arts and crafts table and be like paying ourselves. Like we need to like foster in local communities, and not 85% of transactions and money is all real world. Like we need to, like, if we're gonna get Bitcoin to win and we're gonna like replace the dollar system, we need to figure out how to start using it ourselves. And that way, that's how we participate in the like lifeboat and the ark, becoming the rising tide, lifting all boats if we have our Bitcoin wallet vessels ready. So that's part of what all of this is for everybody else, to get them out of this, because they're being taught all of this. You're paying off your home early, you're stupid. Like, keep your debt, don't pay off your home early, pay off, buy some more sats. It's like, if they'll use as much debt as they'll give you and stack sats with it if you can afford it. So the costs are immeasurable, the rewards of sovereignty and freedom. The cost is inconvenience and education and
gratification.
yeah, it's like personal sacrifice in the moment.
High time
It's like-
preference.
yeah, it's one of the things that as a Tai Chi player, as a permaculturist, I was prepared to think like permaculture, you build edible perennial orchards you don't harvest fruit from for 15 years. Like it's Tai Chi, you're thinking, okay, I'm gonna be 150, I'm starting to practice every day at 20, preparing for the next 130 years to do the same damn sequence of movements. I'm like, I've been ready for Bitcoin. This is how we all need to think, like, okay, I need to live longer so that my sats go up in value. Like, I need to live another 50 years so I can reach 100. I want to see what my sats are worth in 50 years. Like, I can't even begin to imagine what the world's going to look like. With Nostr and AI and all the lightning stuff, it's happened just the last 12 months. I'm like, yeah. So, this idea is basically a quick one from Rich Dad, Poor Dad. An asset is something that pays you, a liability is something that costs you, is the heart of it all. As far as financial, like literacy, like understanding your personal residence is not an asset. A lot of people think their residence, their home is an asset and that's their greatest savings, and it's not, it's a liability. You have rental property, you have Bitcoin, you have like earning businesses, that's one of the, then you're trying to get your business to outperform Bitcoin stuff. That's Michael Saylor, he gave up on it. So here's an idea I encountered from, it turned out there was this Jewish scholar who was studying money, and he broke it down into, historically, this is the currencies that were used, where gold is the currency of kings, silver is the currency of gentlemen, barter of peasants, and debt of slaves. And part of why they use these different mediums is because of the scale. Like when you're trying to deal in like a herd of cattle and a castle, you're not trading in silver, you're trading in gold. It's not big enough. Like you're trying to just get like some eggs, you're not trading in gold. It's like you're getting a loaf of bread, maybe you're just bartering. And the slaves are all, and that's all debt notes are. Like our dollars are all promissory notes, promised to pay interest on it, was never created. Is everybody here aware of how they say fractional reserve banking works, and money is created by issuing debt? Every time somebody takes out a loan, they buy a car, like a house, like every one of these credit cards. That's new money being created every single time. That didn't exist. I've called them out on it. I've proven it. Like I firsthand experience, called their fucking bluff. $10,000 from the University Federal Credit Union with 0% interest we spent without making a single payment. 16 months, 14 months later, they're like, okay, we're suing you, and they locked us out of $120 in our savings account. I sent them one letter, so they couldn't ignore it. I sent it certified mail with a certificate of mailing notarized, what was inside the notarized certified mail. Just asking them where was the account and what was the account number funding this loan that you gave us for the $10,000. And if you did not already have those funds, where is your authorization in your charter to create this $10,000? They gave us back our $120 and we never had to pay on the 10 grand because they broke the fucking law. And they wrote it off as a tax write-off, and nobody ever calls them on their bluff, and they just go about their business. This is like, if I had done that, I'd gone to jail if I was in the wrong. I didn't steal anything, they did. The vendors all got paid, nobody was harmed. This is part of how the system's rigged. Until Bitcoin, we can now become self-sovereign and not have to deal with all of this and have our wealth stolen by people that are given exorbitant privilege to make money out of thin air. They're close to the crown. So what I was talking about earlier is monetarily multilingual is what we need to all learn how to become. And what I do is I funnel every other language of value into sats. It's all funneling into sats is where it rests. And my attitude is the altcoins and the shit coins first go into dollars and for immediate spending, and then into sats for what I don't need for immediate cash. So I treat those like I barely will take them, and only as a favor to somebody. If that's all they have, I'll take it. And I paid the price. Like literally, somebody paid me $300 in Ethereum because that's what they had. And I was trying to buy a car and I needed a bunch of cash. So rather than turn it into Bitcoin, I went to the ATM, tried to cash out $330 worth of Ethereum and paid $110 in fucking fees. Like 30% trying to cash that out. Like it does not work. So get rid of it. Like put it into Bitcoin. So I treat digital dollars. I treat digital dollars as a hand grenade and paper dollars as a hot potato. So it's like one I'm getting rid of really quick. I don't hardly have anything there. I don't hold on to anything in digital dollars. It's a portal. Like the way I used when I was in the cash economy is I would only buy, like if I needed to buy something digitally, I would go buy a prepaid card for only that amount with cash at the local grocery store and pay $5 extra for the card. Now I found I get better banking services through the HEB prepaid card. I could pay $8 a month for unlimited transactions or $1 a transaction, but they finally ended up going to like a negative $1.76 because of inactivity fees. Because I went through 6 months without a single transaction. Like I don't even need it anymore.
What do you use to buy the HEB gift cards?
I don't anymore. I use sats to buy through the Bitcoin company. I buy MasterCards through the Bitcoin company whenever I need it. So I was using paywithmoon.com that broke down after the bank collapses and the KYC stuff being forced on them. So that let me, so what I do is I buy, just like with a prepaid debit card, I buy the amount when I need to. Just for that. So like when I had to pay the $150 to the banker or the lawyer in Wyoming, I didn't want my personal or business bank account attached. I could have used, if I had it in there, I kept it empty. So my business bank account in the LLC's name could have made the payment to the bank or to that lawyer to renew the LLC. But I just used some sats and bought a MasterCard through Bitcoin company because I didn't want my name and bank account information attached to the lawyer's bank account for that payment to go renew. So it's an extra level, maybe not necessary, but just most of this only works most of the time for like hackers and thieves. Like almost none of us, if we're specifically targeted by a government agency, we're fucked. Like if they're coming after you specifically, like it's already too late. If you're in a courtroom, it's too late. You already lost. Like where none of us are going to win. We're not Jason Bourne. They have too much money, attention tools, like surveillance. Like our best bet is to blend in the herd, and if you get singled out, is when you get into trouble. So that's
What's the Bitcoin company? I never heard of them.
They're started out of Austin. It's I think even out of Pleb Lab that sells like prepaid debit cards at a discount. Like you get even like 2 or 3% back on your MasterCard purchase.
So it's a company that was formed for individuals that live off Bitcoin only all over the world.
Oh.
Yeah, so you
So
can
you
buy
can-
like
That's the only spot they are, is in Austin?
No, they're international. They're global.
yeah, they just started.
But they were
out
created
out
in
They're
Austin.
based out of Austin.
They have
Yeah,
a,
it's a-
I'll look them up.
they have a mobile app, and so you just open it, and they have like maybe, I don't know, let's say 600 different cards. And so if you want to go to like Home Depot, you just buy a Home Depot card. It'll be like maybe like a 4% discount, and so you send them $96 of Bitcoin, and then they give you a $100 Home Depot card, and it's like instant.
They give you more than you send them?
Well, because you get like sats back for users. So.
How do they make money?
They're doing it because there's no transaction fees, so the vendors are giving the discounts because they don't have chargeback risk. Home Depot then doesn't have to deal with chargeback risk.
So the 3% they would have paid
To
they
the-
give them a little cut.
Yeah, then it goes to you.
And like you said, the chargeback. If you
Yeah.
pay with the credit card, then you can call your credit card company and be like, it was like fraud or something, and they'll just not pay Home Depot now. and you get your money back, right? So,
and that's
so they don't have, yeah.
That is so common, especially like nowadays when people were broke. Especially and the lower income, like Walmart's even worse than Home Depot. Or like it was 2017, I saw Walmart. Actually, I think it was even like when I was doing part of what made me understand why Bitcoin was. I discovered Walmart was paying 25% of Walmart transactions end up in chargeback. 1 out of 4. Can you imagine? 25 out of every $100 just pulled out of your account with no warning. Try to run a business like that. Like no fucking way. They want business. They don't want to pay 2%. They don't want to pay 3% and
That's
have.
why Walmart almost tried to become their own bank for a while, right?
Yeah, and they're realizing that then they end up with all the same problems of the banks and and any centralized entity. And what's happening is the gamification incentivization model of Bitcoin that works for us at an individual level. It scales up at every level, to corporations, to governments. Like it's just the same incentivization model, just works for them. They need Bitcoin too. It's their best hope, any businesses. So that's part of where I'm trying to help is business to business. Bitcoin is, I think, what we need first. Before we're gonna get business to customer, we need business to business Bitcoin flow. And get it set up so that they're flowing in bidirectionally at all times in not every direction. And we just like keep it flowing in more than out, and we can
Well,
rest.
that's what we have Fed now for.
Well, now we're ending up evolving past that. They're trying to copy. What they always do is the government protocol, the authorities, nanny state always co-ops and discredits any system they can't control. So that's what they've been doing with Bitcoin, is they're trying to use propaganda to give it, to slander it, make it, call it the opposite of what it is with doublespeak, calling it like you can boil the oceans when it's in fact like saving the planet. Doing the same with Ethereum and that sort of shit, and the CBDCs. They're all trying to like take what was a good idea with Bitcoin, create a shittier version for themselves they can control. But the problem is now we have an opt-out of Bitcoin, and we're building better solutions on it, like the Lightning Network and ARC and Fedimint and all these new solutions that are coming up. Because one of the things I've been recognizing as an entrepreneur, as a communitarian building community for all these years, is that we already have semi-trusted arrangements in our physical community with our churches, with our football teams, with our baseball teams, or with the musicians that we're part of the fan club, with our families. We already have these semi-trusted networks that interlace in different ways in a mesh. We can trust them. Like I already work for an employer. We all work for Microsoft. We all were floating 2 weeks worth of labor wages to Microsoft. We could be transacting with our Lightning Network off chain and let our employer be running the node and not need anything else. Because I can trust them, because if they don't pay me, they steal from me. I don't show up on Monday. We have a vested interest in an ongoing relationship. We have an alliance. I know my church pastor. I can trust them to run the LN Bits instance when we're all tapping and tithing on Sunday. This is how Bitcoin
So
works.
you're describing the trust that's required for the Lightning Network with all the nodes too?
Well, how we can scale is we decentralize. We end up with a network of networks, and we run our own nodes, and we outsource different levels of nodes, so it ends up scaling. So with like small, medium, and upper levels of like liquidity, because the channel management is a real challenge. But systems are being built. If anybody that if you can imagine a problem, somebody's already building a solution for it because they saw it before you. Almost always.
Like you talking about managing liquidity, that's where like Fedimint comes in, because no one's gonna want to manage liquidity, so that's the solution to that.
And like myself, I'm a nomad. I don't have a roof over my head. There's a cost in having a rent somewhere and a utility bill, and somebody's got to do it. And if I trust somebody like Pleb Lab, they can be running my node. Geek Squad here could be running a load. They already have this infrastructure. Our businesses we're already trading money with. We already, like our local trading post, our bars, our restaurants. Like in Austin, I'm realizing my community that I've been part of for 30 years is it's a macrobiotic restaurant that was a Montessori school in the front that people like with no advertising, no marketing, word of mouth only. They've been around 30 years with almost no signage out front. And there's a really strong following that I could build as flow of sats between us all to empower us, so we have like a fallback system. What Bucky Fuller suggested is don't try to change the system, just build another one that makes it obsolete and let it atrophy and fall away and die, because we don't need it and we don't care. So this is really the only way that we have to transition from the collapse of this house of cards, to keep the momentum of our tech and our society moving forward without like backsliding. It's really like the only tool we have like without, and that's part of what makes me compassionate for the no coiners, because I couldn't imagine not knowing what I know. Like what a miserable life it would be. I feel even my kids, I tried, like they don't believe me because my ex-wives in the school system, so I indoctrinated them against Bitcoin. And I'm not rich yet, so they're like, oh, you obviously don't know what you're talking about. You're not driving a Lambo. I'm like, you don't even know. That Bitcoin I cashed out for child support will be worth so much, it's just ridiculous. I'll be bitching about that 50 years from now, before I know it. So this is where I got into the capital and capitalism, and like part of where they get us is they like change words around and twist the definitions, and people don't understand that capitalism is basically producing more than you consume and then investing it for the future instead of today. It's like, it's not a bad thing. Like, it's a good thing. Profit is the sign that you did something useful. It's positive feedback. Even in the permaculture groups and the crowds, I can't get them to be, they've been so indoctrinated because they're drawn into permaculture and green movement and energy and take care of the planet. And then I'm like, first three principles of permaculture is take care of the land, take care of the people, return all surplus to the land and to the people. If you don't have a surplus, the land and the people starve. You can't, surplus is profit. Non-profit doesn't, you always have to keep on reaching out to the world outside your land if you're a non-profit. If you're not generating surplus within, you eventually run out of momentum and you're dependent on others. And that's what the goal I have for us all is to achieve siege-proof sovereignty on every one of our households, every one of our businesses. One of the concepts I got from this guy called the Smuggler, total anonymous, like mask, sort of a non-crypto anarchist. I found this YouTube video of European OG. Help me understand that part of what the existing system does is whenever we invest our capital into the physical infrastructure in the building, in the grid, the electricity, the wastewater management, our tools, our vehicles, then it becomes subject to capture by the local jurisdictions, and we can't vote with our feet anymore. So, and if we are able to get cut off and surrounded, then we end up like subject to their authority because we don't have any option, and our friends, like our family and our lives are on the line. So we can't go through with our feet with our capital, and that's why I'm leaning towards seasteading and Bitcoin. So because my wealth is stored as sats, I can take it with me because I don't have it tied down in real estate. I don't have it tied down in a car I have to find the buyer for, and the markets may turn against me. I don't have a real estate stuck in New York where nobody's buying it. So it's like I don't have to deal with any local regulations or taxation. Like it's outside their reach, their purview. That's how I think of it. They can't see it, they can't touch it, none of their concern. But land, that's where they get us, because we all still have physical bodies. And the Bitcoiners with our idealism are like, oh, I'll never own anything. I'm like, that's great, but you still want to like have a roof over your head and ride in your car. Somebody's going to own something. Like somebody's got to have a physical storefront. You want to go to a restaurant, you want a nice hotel, you want a nice bar or spa. Like somebody's got to have title to that, and that's where we use these. What I'm foreseeing, like the Noster, like somebody's gonna do it. I can't wait to do it. I may throw a few $100s out of myself soon to do the first Noster decentralized Bitcoin entity.
Can we do like Amish Bitcoiners? Like
Well, their problem is they judge tech, so they're kind of like, they don't like electricity. So it's kind of to me that just like, it's part of reality. It's like, it's part of denying, like making tools and making use of like what we build with our tools is a fundamental human trait. And electricity has set humans free to not have to like spend our lives just surviving, like washing our clothes, doing our dishes. just
Traveling.
Yeah.
So is that why the government doesn't tax them? Like, is that just like?
Well, it ends up because they're like, the way I think of it is like, when you use the company coin, you're subject to the company rules and the company jurisdiction. But if you don't use the coin of the company, then they don't like they don't have any say anymore. So and that's part of like using bank accounts and even dollars. That's the argument some have, is that like by using their money, it's a benefit. If you're using their promissory notes, you still are subject to some of their jurisdiction just because you're using dollars. And that's where I was just reaching out to. I had a call with a guy, and his first time, I couldn't believe it. He actually acted on it. I was like, shitcoiners. Like sometimes they move faster than Bitcoiners because they see profit. Greed makes them move. So Nevada passed a law saying that if your business is entirely blockchain based and you do not ever touch dollars, then no state or local jurisdiction can tax or regulate you in any way, shape, or form. And this guy opened up a business 5 days later, like 4 or 5 years ago. And they're working on bringing shitcoins into the actual casinos. I'm like, let's just like have them trading sats instead.
I wanted to add how you were saying capitalism is a good thing and how they change words. I have a mentor who told me this a while back. We confuse the definition of capitalism with the definition of cronyism, because that's what's really going on. That's why we see, in 2008, these businesses are too big to fail. The airlines this past couple years ago, they were in trouble because of the COVID restrictions. They got funded by the government because they were too big to fail. When in reality, it should be, that runs in Keynesian economics, a debt-based society. If we were doing Austrian economics, if you fail, that's good because everybody sees where you messed up and it allows a new business to come in and improve on this flawed business model that you had and build an even better business without those flaws. So that's, every time I see capitalism, I like to bring that up. Because right now you have government taking care of their buddies who own these other businesses, and that's how they're incentivized to keep giving them money and keeping these businesses alive that don't essentially produce any value.
Yeah, a lot of times people call that oligarchy.
Yeah.
But it's that whoever's closest to the money spigot enjoys the benefits most.
Mm-hmm.
But this is what one of the things this creation of new wealth requires work and exchange of surplus. This is an idea that I've been considering for years now, because I watched during the ICO craze. And even when they're trying to make money out of thin air, it still didn't work. The companies that really ended up producing the most real profit were the exchanges facilitating all the shitcoinery. And I realized that that's where the real value is in fostering exchange. It's exchange itself is what creates wealth. It's not debt, when they crack like their debt notes and like increasing like numbers in an inch. It's like not more wealth, but more exchange. But I had an argument with Beauty on one of the like hardcore Bitcoiners. I shared this idea with him, and he's like, no, work's the only thing that produces the wealth and capital. I'm like, well, I grow a bunch of extra cattle, and I have a bunch of trees, and I have a bunch of extra electricity. Didn't produce a damn bit, and I exchanged it with somebody. I can only use so much every day. It didn't create any wealth in the community until I exchanged my surplus with others. Then it creates more capital and gross domestic product amongst us all. If I hoard it all myself, I have a forest we're not doing anything with. I'm generating all this electricity I can't use, like it's just sitting there, it's doing nothing. Till I mine Bitcoin with it, and then all of a sudden I put it to use, and then sats flow everywhere.
You said Beauty on disagreed with that?
he hadn't responded to that, my response to his, and he's right about like work at he hadn't really responded yet to, and I think maybe he already blocked me and never even saw it. As far as-
I like most of what he says, but, I've gone from like 100% of what he says down to, I'm like at 70% now. I feel like he's straying off the course a little bit, but
Well,
he's a super smart guy.
Yeah, and we all have the constant challenge, it comes up with, I found it's across the board, it doesn't matter what we develop. It's our physical body, or our intellectual body, our spiritual body, I imagine emotional too, I've never developed it. Any girlfriend will tell you that. But arrogance, pride, because you've done the work, you become intellectually arrogant. You become spiritually arrogant. Spiritual pride is a real thing. The more work you've done, the harder it is to not become prideful and think you're better than others who haven't done any work.
Well, you have to remember, stay humble and stack sets.
Yeah, it's just,
So you think Beauty On got affected by that a little bit, because he got so popular?
I think it's more that just he's an elder and he only has so much bandwidth, and like he does, and he dismisses things without like digging any deeper to understand nuances sometimes, just like all of us will do, like it'll happen to any of us. Because I think in a real debate, I don't think he'd have any argument with me in person, so.
I would agree with that. Better Bank does exactly the same thing. What you said, they facilitate the exchange. Even though they give you the loan for $10,000, someone else is paying for that $10,000. So they connect you to their investors to make sure that you pay monthly to their investors. So the whole work that they're doing is the exchange.
And that's getting into the aspect of what one of the distinctions I encountered from one of the writers out of Austin from Letters at 3 a.m. This guy Michael Ventura was writing for decades, and during the Occupy movement, he pointed out in this 3-part series that it takes labor, idea, and capital for anything to happen. Somebody had to invent it, somebody had to build it, and somebody had to pay for the tools and materials and build infrastructure to actually build it with the labor. What's happened is our system has been designed so 90% of the wealth is going to capital, and they're starving out labor and idea and invention, and it's not in alignment with natural law, and that's why 90% of the wealth in this country is generated in financial services right now, because we're not providing anything else. Like, it's making so much money so fast, where they're like nanny state over the world trying to provide these financial services. I view it as kind of the death throes of a parasite trying to grab on before it loses its host, is what's kind of happening right now with a lot of the government, the CBDCs, the lockdowns on our choke point 2.0 sort of on and off ramps. All of this is them just like trying to grab on, because just since just the last few months, they added another $1 trillion. Like 3 months, they added this much in debt. 3 months. Takes 32,000 years to pay back the debt they just added onto their bill in 3 months. Like, holy fuck. Like, none of us get to do that. Like, who do they think they are? We got to trade our time, our sweat, our blood, our life that we'll never get back. And while they get to make all this up out of thin air, and I'm seeing people starving on the streets. It's just, this is why it's broken, and we need Bitcoin. It's a peer-to-peer network, though, and we have to have peers, and like training our peers and ourselves all at once is really challenging when none of us trust everybody. Nobody trusts anybody anymore. Even like I have all these apps that help me go into people's homes to do repairs for them, and they don't trust me to know what I'm doing. They think they know it better than me because they watched a YouTube video, and they trust the guys on YouTube for their own electrical and wiring, and they're like, we're plumbing. And I'm like, and they don't trust me that I'm not going to steal from them. It's like, it's really weird. Like, nobody trusts anybody anymore, and part of it is because there's been so much thuggery. And Bitcoin changes the financial reward to violence. Like, that was like Trace Myers, wherever he's gone, that was one of the best things he brought to the whole Bitcoin ecosystem mindset paradigm, is this idea that no amount of math, No amount of physical force can solve a math problem. It's the like concept I got from Trace, and he's spot on. It's I think it's the asteroid hitting the ocean, starting the tidal wave that hasn't hit land yet. Like it's so new in human history that nobody sees it because of normalcy bias. Bullies have always won. They were always able to pick the corpse. Like, even take your horse, take your clothes, take your jewelry, take your gold, take your house, take your garden, take your cattle. Like now we can store our excess wealth in a form that they only have a mess to clean up. They don't get a financial reward because my brain wallet protected my Bitcoin. All they have is legal liability. And if there's no financial reward, why bother? Maybe we play it nice, finally, for the first time in human history, and we quit acting like cavemen and beating each other up, trying to take each other's shit, because now it doesn't work. So we can all, as a society, finally mature. And there we're being lied to. So this I found amusing, and it cracked me up. I was just watching this 2 days ago. I'm like, what fucking year was this made? I had to go look. It was 2023, and they're talking about AI, and like this AI super bomb, like the worst, like $10 billion theft of the super dangerous thing. Wasn't a weapon. It was AI that could break into any computer in the world. And these couple of billionaires, tech billionaires, were supposedly buying up gold because they were going to use the AI to crash the legacy financial system, and they're like claiming in this movie that there's nothing but gold to replace the legacy banking system. Like it's a fact. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like you're like willfully ignorant. I'm like, was this written before, like 15 years ago? They're just like trying to like put it in the zombie minds. Like there is nothing but gold. Like there's like Bitcoin doesn't
this
exist.
Operation Fortune movie?
Yes.
It just came out?
Yeah, it's still on Amazon just within the last week or so.
Is it worth watching?
I don't know. I found it kind of amusing, but that really I found disappointing. A lot of the stuff that comes out on Amazon and Netflix I watch is kind of like setting the propaganda of my enemy. Is like the bread and circuses going out. It's like how and also to like understand what's being fed to the no coiners, because I'm so far removed I can't even like. It's why I can't market this stuff, because I can only relate to Bitcoiners. I don't understand how the no coiners think anymore. Like I can't sell to them because like they're a different planet. Like Nakamoto, right? If you don't take the time to understand it, I don't have the time to explain it to you. Yeah, it's like we're past the point of recruitment. It's time to just batten down the hatches and build our safe haven with our team. Like it's time to like figure out, like lock down our rosters, and that's actually what I'm thinking about as like my startup name, I guess, like my brand name. I'm thinking about as like roster, ROSTR. Like whose roster are you on? Who do you want on your roster? Like I'm a ball player. I think like and a sailor, and I think your crew is your weak link. It's like loose lips sink ships, because like they're the crew and they don't have anything at risk, and they go get drunk and laid and talk to the barmaid, and all of a sudden you're getting robbed because like they found out where you're going. This is metaphors for teaching us how to behave with all of our Bitcoin keys, which is where this comes in, because we're the weak link, and our teams are the weak link. Out of all of our tech, it's the human element that's going to fail. Having some systems in place with our protocols. And that's mostly what I try to teach people, is a protocol for behaving with all these protocols. It's like a behavioral protocol, and like copying and pasting. Don't read, write, type. Your eyes, your hands, your memory fail. Copy and paste. Figure out a way to do it. A quick hack I can share with you all. That's one of my favorite features. It's part of why I use Telegram. So I have Telegram on my 2 laptops and 2 cell phones, and I can move between all of them with any link or address just by copying and pasting it into a note to myself in Telegram on one device, and then I go to that note to myself in another device and copy and paste. And if it's a password or something I don't want to leave as an archive, I just erase it as a draft and never even send it. So I get to move it from my phone to my desktop to my laptop, without having to scan or copy or type anything. 'Cause
You like Telegram because of the encryption? And
you don't get the encryption. I like it because of the convenience. And I don't do it for like private wallet address. Are we needing to go?
No.
So Telegram it has secret chats, but they don't make it convenient to even figure out how to use it, and it only works from the one device. So if I have a secret chat with you, that conversation thread only shows up on the device I initiate that chat with. It won't show up on my desktop or my laptop if I use my Telegram.
You have to
on my-
install it separately on each
It ends up just like the encryption is on the device, so it's not on the other devices, and it's just a security thing, that if it's gonna be encrypted, they can't have it
Yeah.
sync up across 4 devices.
Sure.
Mostly nowadays, I just use like Nostr and private messages on there anonymously.
Are you gonna give us your Nostr address?
Yeah, I'm just like, I'm OV1 is easy enough.
Like OV and then 1?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is what I found ironic about in language. Part of what I love about language.